Marble has a very good question. How did 200 jets enter Iran unscathed? The Israelis, Marble, have been working on that for years. And so one of the things that they've been very good at is identifying the locations of Iranian radar installations. And they destroyed many of those in the very first wave. And don't forget that they are violating Jordanian and Iraqi airspace. So they're coming in from the north. They're working with the Saudis and the Bahrainis and the Emiratis to enter from the northwest, the west, and the southwest. They're just overwhelming the Iranian air defenses. The Iranians can't keep up, and certainly can't keep up over the long term.
So basically Iran is outmatched here militarily.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Are.
I mean, I think it is fair.
They are, but see, that's where the Israeli mistake and the American mistake is going to be, Ted. It's easy to see Iran as some third world country. They're poor, they're backward. The sanctions have crippled them over the last 47 years, 46 years. And that's not exactly true. I mean, sure, they lack for a lot of things. Yes, the Israelis have had military successes, but the Iranian people, while not nationalists, like so many of the rest of us are still patriots. And they're going to fight this thing until the bitter end.
I believe that. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, so you can bomb the shit out of a society, but can you really defeat them unless they own it? And I kind of think you can't. You can just leave them damaged and harmed. I mean, the goal here is regime change, right? Now, I don't believe that an aerial war will ever accomplish that here or anywhere else. It just basically doesn't work. But let's just say for the intellectual brain exercise, okay, let's just see. I mean, do you think the Israelis or even the United States has given any thought to what would follow? I mean, we did regime change in Iraq. It was a catastrophe. We had no plans for what would come in next. I don't know. We listened to Ahmed Chalabi and we thought that, we would be greeted as liberators. Basically, Iran owns and operates Iraq ever since. And then ISIS came into Western Iraq. Afghanistan, we had no plans for what would come next. We installed a puppet, didn't do any good. Now we're right back where we started. Libya, probably the most catastrophic of all. Got rid of Muammar Gaddafi, the most literate, successful society really in that part of the world, in all of Africa, and reduced it to a failed state where they had slave markets. Syria, it's a shithole now, ever since we got rid of Assad. What are they? Do you think they've learned? And I mean, I'm sorry. Do you think they've learned anything at all?
No. And that's because of the neoliberal, neoconservative agenda. It's this overwhelming, irrational belief that not only are we the good guys, but it is our duty to impose our culture, our politics, and our beliefs on the rest of the world, whether they realize they want it or not. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I've told you the story, Ted, of being George Tenet's note taker the night before the invasion of Iraq in a principals committee meeting, where General Tommy Franks, the commander of CENTCOM, said, and these were his exact words, and this was in February of 2003. If all goes as planned, we can be in Tehran by August. We all know what Wesley Clark said. 7 countries in 5 years, or whatever the time length was. We were going to attack Iran, Iraq, Libya, Syria, North Korea, all these different places, and they were just going to fall one right after the other. And that's just not real life. That's just not That's not the way it ever works out. I told you also that this knucklehead on the National Security Council who was participating in that meeting, at the very end of the meeting, when all the principals were getting up to walk away, he said, the minute we cross that border, they're going to throw flowers at us. And I said to my boss afterwards, do they know nothing about history? And he said, no, they know nothing about history. That's what it's come down to.
I read a really interesting piece. I think it was in the New York Times many, many years after the Iraq War had turned into a fiasco.
Yeah.
And it was a reminiscence of the very first unit to arrive at the very first Iraqi village. And they had been told, this is a Shia village who've been oppressed by Saddam. And everybody there is going to be, this will surely be a nice start to the war because everybody there is going to be happy to see us.
Yeah.
And instead, everybody down to little boys were shooting like mofos at the American troops. They couldn't get over it. And they said, and the Fedayeen were all over the place. And they were just like, but this is supposed to be, the easy
friendly village.
Yeah, this is the friendly village. It's all downhill from here, and it never got better. I mean, it's that whole. I mean, it's. I don't know. It's just so bizarre. You have this giant infrastructure of intelligence agencies, and the military itself, who collect massive amounts of data, have tons of analysts, historians, people like you. Who their job is to figure out what is likely to happen, and they rely in part on history, and
yes.
and in large part, and we know what happens in history. Nobody likes to be invaded. Everybody's afraid of the invader and assumes that they're there to rape their wives and kill them and steal their shit, and they're not usually wrong about that. Mm-hmm. So people, they fight back. That's just what always happens. And so why would we ever think that it would ever be any different?
You keep doing the same thing and hope for a different outcome. It just makes no sense at all. No sense at all. But let me ask you a question. In March of this year, Tulsi Gabbard testified in open session before the Senate Intelligence Committee. And she said that it was the consensus of the entire U.S. Intelligence Committee that the Iranians were not seeking a nuclear bomb, they were not building one, and they did not have an active program to enrich uranium for the purpose of using in a nuclear weapon. That was in March. Donald Trump said yesterday and 3 days ago, I don't care what she said. So why have 18 or 17, however many we have, intelligence agencies? Why have a director of national intelligence? Why request a national intelligence estimate from your top analysts if you're just going to pretend that they don't know what the heck they're talking about?
Well, basically, and part of what the coda to what Trump said, right, John, was, we're, I think they were very close. Oh, yeah. You thought.
Based on what?
Basically, from all those times that you visited Iran and all those times that you hung out with Iranian nuclear scientists and you listened to their phone calls. Like, I thought, like, come on. I mean, it's basically like, obviously a little bird named Bibi has been singing in his ear. And, it's a disaster. I mean, if I were Donald Trump, had Donald Trump's ear, I would really say to him, listen, Donald, I hear what you're saying, but don't you feel like you're getting the hard sale here from the Israelis? Like Bibi's doing this on his schedule.
Yeah.
He needs Gaza off the front pages of the newspapers. He needs Israel not to be considered a global pariah for committing genocide in Gaza. And he is trying to avoid all the domestic opprobrium that's coming from the fact that he didn't bring the hostages home and he didn't defeat Hamas. He doesn't seem to know how to defeat Hamas or bring the hostages home, or he may not care, which is my personal belief there. This is about him, and it's not about you. It's like, what does this do for you, Donald Trump? I'm going to suspect not much. Not
much.
The grifter is
67% of Americans. 67% of Americans oppose war with Iran.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And
when you consider all the anti-Iranian propaganda that's happened,